Hey, hey. Good day, good day, good day. Wait a minute. Testing. Okay, I'm getting sound out of the speakers that I'm not supposed to. So, hopefully that's not affecting how y'all are receiving it, but that's exactly what's happening and it's not supposed to happen. Okay. But, welcome back to this experience of, and y'all probably are getting that echo. Hold on. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. Okay. Testing, testing, testing. Testing 1, testing 2, testing 3. Okay. Let's make sure we're getting all the volume that we can get on this. Because it has been a while. And do it this way. Testing, testing, testing. Yep, we're going to do it this way. Testing. There we go. All right, so I may not need this. Testing. Yep. We're going to rock it without the headset. We're going to rock it without the mic. I had to come up with step 2. This is the beautiful thing about doing what I do, is I can do tech support on the fly because this is what we do. So I am not mad as long as I can see my voice moving in the background, and I'm good with that. So, okay, let's get here. Welcome to AfriStream. It's been a second, y'all. I know it's been a whole minute that some things happened that pulled me through, so I have not been up on doing my AfriStream as on Thursday nights as much for some months now. For some months. I can say around November, 4th, at least since November 4th. Yeah, exactly. I remember the date. But we welcome you back to the experience of AfriStream, where this is, we're giving you hot topics around the diaspora, and we're putting a Pan-African spin on what you may hear. And so this is a part of our focus, where this is the rise of the African, the social media Pan-African movement, where we're bringing black people together from all over the diaspora for the sake of being a global family, where this African diaspora experience is a global experience, where we see family anytime we see melanation. we connect, and first we erase those that constructs in our minds, those mental constructs that are put in to think that we are separate people, but we are not. All right, we all have the same origins, and that is the first black man and black woman that walked on the planet. And we have delivered to this earth humanity. And so why not focus on building back the family? Building back the family. The rise of the African is about building back the family of the African diaspora. All right. So I know, I had issues with the FB blocking me and shutting me down and doing so much. They came after the African. So I ask you, if you're watching on Facebook, please like, comment, share. We're building back our algorithm. Before November, it was like in police. They were hunting me down and blocking me and changing things since like 4 months before November. All right, so now also, if you're watching us via YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. So anytime that we're here to bring you news, you'll get it. Today's conversation is connected to some of the conversations that we've had on Sunday, which is Keeperland Inspirational Sunday, but definitely the information that we've been having on the African Speaks. And so this is deeply, deeply important. So when you can, support the other two. I'll start adding AfriStream as an advertisement because we're coming back with AfriStream. There's so much been going on in the diaspora. And every time I see something, I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't because I was somewhere else dealing with something else. And so as we fight, if you know, we're going to get to it because I was ready about to go in it. As we continue to build, tonight's topic is what's hidden now. This is the hot topic. And there are two topics that we're going to cover tonight, but there's going to be, this one is going to lead into another one, which will lead into the conversation that we had in regards to the African Speaks, which is the potency and power of modern day slavery and the answer to resolving modern day slavery. What? Yeah, if you missed those three, it was really 4 segments. Part 1 was understanding the game. Part 2, we had 2 guests out of Houston discussing the game right, that is being played in the game that we must play. Part 3 was giving more detail to, it was understanding it more detail in terms of the potency of modern day slavery and the power and effect it's literally having on us. And then part 4 was the answer, how to defeat modern day slavery. What? Take a look at it when you can. Tonight's conversation is focused on Uganda. So Uganda is focused on, they're putting together an anti-gay legislation. What? And this was ironic, according to what we were talking about in the previous The African Speaks, Tuesday nights. Sunday, during the live stream of a Keeperland Inspirational Sunday, when we were working on a Keeperland alumni, we had one of the Keeperland alumni speak to the community. At the end of Sunday, I had someone come up to me, and this is just by osmosis. Someone come up to me and said, Ajay, yes, sister. Walamu Ajay, yes, sister. We need to save our children. We need to have an experience in life that allows our children to be children before they make the decision of their sexual preference. Let's say that. Before they make the decision of their sexual preference. Parents are coming in and they're allowing their kids to make their sexual preference or their sexual decision, the decision of the decision of their sexual preference around 12. I'm like, yeah, I know, that's disgusting to me. Deeply disgusting. To me, personally. When you're giving a child the authority, before you give them their I am, you are giving them the authority to choose their sexual preference at 12. That means that there's something that community is not doing in regards to, or that parent is not doing in regards to, sorry, my virtual set, I got to get my mindset that I always got to keep that running. There's something that parent is not doing in regards to helping that child be a child to find them who they are in God. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit more at the end. Right. However, I want you to take a look at how Uganda is approaching the situation. Again, I believe in the power of choice, but I believe that choice comes at after a particular stage of life. I believe that in a community is supposed to develop the child's gifts, talents, attributes, and views. Once that child is completely developed and has passed their initiation rites and become adult in their spiritual dealings with themselves, because when you have a spiritual community, you know, who knows? Then that child is allowed to make choices on their own. But up until adulthood And each community chooses that differently up until adulthood. And for us, we said during the African Speaks, true maturity is shown when a mindset of self-determination is instilled in a being. Now, if you're not focused on self-determination, you're not a truer being yet. Take a look. And this conversation will prove that. Let's take a look at this.
Our morals will protect our children, and we are making this law. We are making this law for ourselves. We are making this law for our children. We are making this law for the children of our children. This council stands firm. And once it passed, I can tell you, Madam Speaker, we are going to reinforce the law enforcement officers to make sure that homosexuals have no space in Uganda.
Homosexuals have no space in Uganda. That was said by a lawmaker. You'd think that such rhetoric has no place in today's time. But this rhetoric is rampant in the country and in fact thrives in Uganda. In Parliament, Uganda's anti-homosexual legislation was celebrated with song and fervour. Lawmakers rejoiced as the Parliament passed laws criminalizing same-sex relationships. In fact, even identifying as a gay or lesbian can now get people imprisoned for 20 years. The legislation makes it a duty for families, friends and members of the community to report homosexuals to authorities. There's a ban on promoting and abetting homosexuality. The law promises to act against the conspiracy to engage in same-sex activities. Perhaps the most radical provision is people engaging in aggravated acts of homosexuality will get a life sentence. That's if they're lucky. If not, they'll get the death penalty. The near-unanimous support for the anti-gay legislation is reflective of the mood in Uganda. It's a deeply conservative Christian country. Homosexuality is a taboo. The people of Uganda support the latest legislation. All but one member of the parliament spoke against the bill. The legislation hasn't become the law yet. For that, it would require the sign of President Yoweri Museveni. But that's a foregone conclusion. The man has opposed LGBTQ rights as a matter of principle.
Now, in that space where Uganda's making a move according to what Uganda wanted to happen, they're governing their lives, and it's not set in stone. It's definitely not set in stone. However, it's moving that way. Now, when they said aggravated homosexuality, yeah, that's molestation and rape. And I'm hoping they're doing the same thing with pedophiles. Let's talk about that. Okay? Let's take a look at the conversation that they're having with the president. So we see that they're voting on it, they're singing on it, they're feeling like they're making a way to a better tomorrow. They feel like they're in the process of saving their children and their children's children. And we have a problem with what Uganda's doing? Really? Take a look.
What is your message to Western human rights groups,
respect,
to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people?
Respect African societies and their values. If you don't agree, you just keep quiet. Let's manage our society the way we see. If we are wrong, we shall find out by ourselves. Just the way we don't interfere with yours.
You should do this, you should do that, you should do that. But this is my house. I know how to run my house. How can you find a married man and you lecture him how to run his house? That shows what we call in Swahili, dharau. Dharau, contempt. It's contempt. You cannot see a mature man with a bald head, you see. And you give me a lecture on how to run my house. Sure, I know how to run my house.
Homosexuality is not good in Uganda here because for us, we follow God's God's orders, whereby God told us to produce and increase his people in the world. So if we do homosexuality, we can't increase more people, we can't create people.
For us as Africans, we don't believe in homosexuality, and I think as an African, he should take his stand and take what the people in Africa stand for, which is non-homosexuality.
Now, in the last statement, but we're going to see the statement from the president. Let us govern ourselves. Let us focus on being Ugandan. And if we're wrong, we'll change it. If we're wrong, we'll go back and fix it. But there's something happening to our people that we must control. In terms of what are our ways, our traditions, our cultures, our heritage. If you don't like it, you don't have to be in Uganda. We don't say anything to the Americas when y'all are doing what y'all want to do. So why are you mad? The fact that we are governing ourselves the way we see fit. And they said only one person in the parliament disagreed. Now, one of the things that pros and cons in regards to the parliament is a black lady dressing up with the curly white hair like they got from Britain. It's crazy. There's still some colonialism there. However, if you're dealing with African spirituality, we can have an argument of how spiritual technology dealt with the act of same-sex interaction, spiritual technologies. However, again, free will. But you cannot be angry at a man that makes a decision to be self-determined. Uganda's making a move. And the brother said, and you listen to the brothers, just somebody random. We seek to be Ugandan. We seek to have our own African ways and culture. If we do not want to be as liberal as the Western society, leave us alone. What? If that's not self-determination, I can't tell you what it is. And that's something that we have to look about. We have to look at. Is this an act? And a lot of people can get upset, but they're practicing their form of democracy. Put it to a vote. How many people in here want to vote? And you saw how packed the room was. And even with a packed room, only one person said, this is not right. And the president clear, you do for your country what you want to do for your country. And according to the level of democracy that we have, we voted on it. We talked about it. And in another conversation, the president said, give me proof that this happens at birth, and I won't do it. America couldn't give him proof, and nobody else could give him proof. And so he said, it's done. African spirituality, divine consciousness does not have an agenda. Not agenda, but a gender. It doesn't have one. When it says African spirituality or even traditional Christianity, I know you before I formed you in the womb, so you're trying to tell me you had a gender when you were pure consciousness? No, you didn't. You was pure spirit. Your spirit didn't know what gender it was given, and until they could see it grow. So your hormones and your God work with your DNA. People say, in my spirit I was born. No. Your gender is acknowledged at a particular period But your spirit, in its purest form, is not male or female. Think about it. So that's why he said Africans want to do what Africans do. Whether I have an issue with free will, let them be free. But they deserve the right to define their lifestyle, their culture, their heritage, and their way of life. And if they are wrong, they have the right to make a change. This is the first time that people are making a difference to be a people. We talked about the mark of slavery, modern day slavery, where you don't even know you're a slave and you arguing, fighting against the wrong thing. Everybody's up in an uproar. They're just practicing self-determination. That's a people. That's a people with an awareness of the power of under God that they have. They only have to answer to one being, and that's the Creator. Ain't that something? Now, of course, people in Uganda will argue, will fight, they will do what they can do. And as they continue to live as a people, they will then make a decision and say, hey, this is not right. We need to unthink this, rethink this, and undo this law. A people who are being self-determined gets to make their decisions for themselves. So not whether it's right or whether it's wrong. We're talking about what self-determination gives you. What does self-determination gives you? The opportunity to live unto God the way you see fit. Ain't that so? Black people in this country, we are deeply immature in the diaspora of the Americas because we do not dictate what happens with us. We live in someone else's country. We are slowly trying to work our way in and up. You made it through. Anytime somebody's saying you're still the first to do this, or this, you know that you're living in a country that does not really want you around. We're not self-determined. Ain't that something? So we're deeply immature. I say we because I'm here too. I can't wait for the opportunity where I own my land and my land is mine and I have everything I can need, where I don't have to go to the grocery store because I can feed myself all year round. And maybe the only time I leave my house to go to the store is to get some juice. Bugle Land Ministries, y'all get ready. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to definitely be talking about that. Let's take a look at this next clip. Because there is a movement now in America to tell Uganda that if you do this, we will not support you as a country. What? You're not supporting self-determination? Determination? What? Really? Listen.
Concerns with the passage of the Anti-Homosexuality Act, AHA, by the Parliament of Uganda yesterday, and increasing violence targeting LGBTQI+ persons. If the AHA is signed into law and enacted, it would impinge upon universal human rights, jeopardize progress in the fight against HIV/AIDS, deter tourism and invest in Uganda, and damage Uganda's international reputation.
Now, they say this the most calming way. We're not going to send you any medical, any exports. You're going to jeopardize everything. Because if you don't do what we want, you're infringing on human rights. You got a black woman to say that. In a country that infringes on human rights on a daily basis. Let me see you stand up and speak against the own country that you stand in the front of. That's what I want her to see. I want to see her do that. That's the, and she's doing her slave plantation job because she's the spokesperson for the White House. And if what this is the White House says, this is what's got to go. We won't help you no more. We won't support you being self-determined. We won't support you. And it's not being forced in Uganda. It's not a dictator. They're voting on it. And the people in the parliament was voted in. They have a democracy in Uganda. And that's the thing that the westernized world has to fear soon. That when these African countries realize that they can be completely self-determined, what do you think other changes they're going to make? We left our heritage back with colonialism. There was ways that we used to live in our spiritual practices that would bless a baby at birth. And so that wasn't I know of a African shaman who says West Africa, Dagbani tribe. He says when a child is born, we can see that spirit that attaches itself to that child and only manifests once that child becomes sexually active. He says, so we bless the child, we pray over the child, herb baths, the spirit of perversion is gone. So now that child has the ability to choose freely when the spirit of the perversion is gone. Okay, look. There's no spirit of the perversion on you. We see you. What's your choice? And when you choose that, where there is no spiritual perversion, that's your choice. And the power of African spirituality, when that's chosen, and there is no attachment of a spiritual of perversion, that particular individual walks in a spiritual authority of being able to mediate between man and woman. They are used in the community to be the mediator of husband and wife. That communication bridge we have. Ain't that something? We don't exist like that in the LGBTQ plus society here. We don't exist like that at all. We don't walk in that power. They don't walk in that power. Not over here. I don't know what they do over here. But there's a power to it if it's not connected to the spirit of perversion. Ain't that something? I would love to meet one of those individuals who walk without the spirit of perversion, but walk in that spirit of being able to bring together the two entities of consciousness. One that was producing a male body, another one that's producing a female body. I would love to see how that particular spiritual being blends. And it's not just an experience of expressing one's sexuality, but it's about aligning the relationships of heterosexuals. Wow. Ain't that power? Ain't that power? That's how they were used. That's powerful. I'm going to get this right. Now, when you have America, wait. I had this. Did I have this? When you have America arguing or making a statement that they will not give Uganda any aid. I'm looking for another clip. When you have somebody doing that, so what is a free man supposed to think and say? What happens? Let's see. And so that connects us to me see if I can do this. This statement right here. Russia, new relationship with Africa. What? Because Uganda's not the only one talking about this. We don't want the quote-unquote westernized gay agenda in our country. We don't want it. We want to go back. They're trying not to embrace ancient African spiritual technologies. Because you couldn't have with white folks being pure African. It's hard for them to understand us when we walk in our spiritual power. So the governments are trying to piecemeal it. We're going to give them what we're going to do a piece of. But it's just not Uganda. Ghana, Zimbabwe, and a few others. Now, when you realize that Africa as a continent is seeking an experience of self-determination, somebody comes along and plays chess while everybody else is playing checkers. Ain't that so? Let's take a look at what Russia's doing in Africa as we speak in the middle of a war. This brother, this colonizer, walks in and makes a genius move. Take a listen.
And Russia has become a key ally to many African countries, and Putin has made significant strides in strengthening the relationship between the two regions. At the Russia-Africa and the Multipolar World Conference, Putin reiterated Russia's commitment to prioritizing cooperation with African nations. The cancellation of African debts is just one example of the bold steps Russia has taken to build a more productive and mutually beneficial relationship with the continent over the years. Putin has canceled more than $20 billion in debt owed by African countries. This debt had accumulated during the Soviet era. In the past, Russia had attempted to collect these debts, which were mainly a result of Moscow's previous alliances with African countries that supported its communist ideology. During this time, Russia provided military equipment and technical assistance to countries such as Angola, Algeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Namibia, Mozambique, Morocco, and South Africa, among others. As a result, many African nations found themselves heavily indebted to Russia, with official documents estimating the total amount at $20 billion. During the conference, Putin also revealed that the trade relationship between Russia and African nations is thriving, with the trade volume reaching a staggering $18 billion in 2022 and growing each year. In addition, Putin expressed his belief that a more robust transition to national currencies and financial settlements, and the creation of new transport and logistics networks will help facilitate the development of reciprocal economic exchanges. By taking these measures, Russia and African nations will likely be able to build stronger, more self-sufficient economies, paving the way for a more prosperous future. Additional opportunities are opened up by the process of establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, which began in 2021, which will become a conventional market with a total GDP of more than $3 trillion, he added. During the conference, Putin expressed Russia's support for establishing connections with the African Continental Free Trade Area, both through the Eurasian Economic Union and bilaterally. He also noted that Africa is poised to become a leading player in the multipolar world. He said, "The states of Africa are constantly increasing their weight and their role in world affairs. They are asserting themselves more and more confidently in politics and in the economy. We are convinced that Africa will become one of the leaders in the emerging new multipolar world order." Despite being an international outcast with an arrest warrant looming over him, Putin remains steadfast in his pursuit of stronger ties with Africa. His unwavering commitment to the continent is rooted in his belief that Africa's economy has immense untapped potential, and he is determined to take the necessary measures to promote a bright and prosperous future for both Russia and Africa. What do you think about Russia canceling African debts?
Now, what do you think about this new relationship that Russia has with Africa? He counseled $20 billion of debt in multiple countries so that you don't own or owe colonial money. We took you over during the time of colonialization and you supporting communism. And we helped build your industries. And you owe us money. He said, nah, that was forced debt. Now you're moving into an experience of self-determination. We don't want to even touch forced debt. That doesn't show a good relationship that we care about this particular region of the world growing in terms of being self-determined. He said, we're going to alleviate colonial debt. Do you know where African countries would be if every European society they owe money to alleviates colonial debt? Now we can do business with the money that we want to do business with. Why? Because your colonialism is done. But we still owe the debt of colonialism? That's retarded. He was the first European to say, we're going to cancel colonial debt and become one-on-one in partnerships where we are manifesting the best of the continent, where the new contracts that are being established have your words attached to it. Ain't that something? That's a lot. He making chess moves. America is saying, we're not going to give you this. We're not going to give you that. We're going to treat you like this. And he said, do you know Africa's still the continent on the earth that has the most resources that can take care of every other nation? That's ridiculous. You're going to get out as they're trying to learn how to be self-sufficient, creating self-sufficient economies. Can you see that? Say that to an African continent. Say that to a president of an African continent. We don't want you to pay back any colonial debt. We want you to develop self-sufficient economies. So if America tries to strong arm self-sufficient economies, Russia's saying, hey, we're going to support y'all standing on your own. All we want is an economic relationship. What? How powerful is that? How powerful is that? Now, one of the things that clicked in my head when they were talking about the countries that Russia supports. Look at this. I don't know if y'all remember where we said East Africa is now a new world power. They are the fourth largest nation in the world. And almost all the African countries that Russia supports are part of the East African community. Ain't that something? So now East Africa said, we'll do business with you as long as you wipe away colonial debt. Now let's see this. Russia's already all in Africa. They're just not giving as much money as other nations. So other nations are requiring to have control of the mining. Other nations are requiring to have control of the farming. Other nations are requiring to have the control of the resources. Russia says, nah, we don't want that. We just want to support you. And in the last 10 years, the amount of trade between Africa and Russia has doubled. Russia's still on the bottom, right? You have China, India, United States, Germany, United Kingdom, Japan, then Russia. But then Russia just said, we're going to wipe away colonial debt. Let me see America say that. Let me see Germany say that. Let me see the United Kingdom say that. Colonial debt. That's big. We're playing checkers. The United States is playing checkers. By putting him, he playing chess. We, as an African people, all we care about is becoming more in our spiritual awareness to be self-determined. Think about it. So whether you agree or disagree with what is happening in their democracy, at least they're allowed to be self-determined. What do you do? What do you build? Who do you work with? What did you accomplish for the sake of being self-determined? Ain't that something? If you haven't voted, if you haven't participated in community support, you don't have an organization that is focused on self-determination, supporting local farmers, learning how to farm, educating your kids to be self-determined. Difference to being an entrepreneur versus being self-determined. Self-determination gets you closer to the experience of God, because that's who you're going to rely on to make your steps, to make your moves, to make everything. Can't wait to start talking about Bugle Land Ministries. It's coming, y'all. It's a whole new show. Working on it. With that being said, please know that all we do is about the rise of the African. And in this space, what we saw was a nation making decisions for itself. You know, again, Ghana's doing it, Zimbabwe is doing it. There's a couple other places that are making decisions for themselves, trying to throw off the shackles of colonialism. And so they said, one of the things that we're going to address that is going rampant in Westernized society is the quote-unquote gay agenda. This shouldn't be a gay agenda, because there's no heterosexual agenda. That's crazy. I always tell individuals what your sexual preference is yours. How much do you commit your life to the liberation of Black people? That's what matters. Whatever Uganda wants to do as a nation, making global decisions or decisions on a national level, as a country, as a people, man, as a society, man, that's so beautiful. That's the beauty in this. To be able to look at somebody and say, we're going to make a vote. And if you don't like the way we vote, mind your business. Because it's not done by force. It's done by a vote. We don't say anything to you about how you do in your country. Then leave us alone and let us do what we want to do. And it ain't by violence. It is by democracy. And this is who they want to call themselves to be. So for those who are in Uganda, who feel like the world is closing in, choose a location in the diaspora or learn to adapt. That's all we have. Because when the African rises, we will all get to make democratic decisions that affect our lives. Because if we could vote for real in this country, man, please. We asking for education. We're asking for prayer in schools. We're asking for so many things that we would like culturally to happen. Fair market rate in banking as a people. Fair interest rates, fair salaries We can't even ask for that. Because it's a systematic oppression. All they're saying is, we want you to reproduce. Please. And they voted on it. There wasn't nobody, you didn't hear any. And I would like to see if there was any corruptions in the vote, because you have it. But what I see is African countries to make a decision to be self-determined. That's what I get from this. And that's the most beautiful thing. And if America doesn't want to support an African country being self-determined, look like Russia making power moves. With all those countries that they named, all those 8 African countries that they named. If Russia is the main power broker for these African countries, and now Russia has direct resource, but you understand what he's setting up? They say he's doing this while he has a bounty on his head, a warrant for his arrest. But see the rise of the African in this news clip. What would you like to be put on the table for a diplomatic vote for the black community if we had full power over governing our lives? What would you want for your children? What would you want for your people? What would you want to be your legacy? I applaud them for making the stand. I do not believe anybody. Law should be against free will. And that no. No. But, wow. They're becoming self-determined. And that's beautiful. Hopefully you see the beauty in that. Until next time, AfriStream. Rise of the African. One love.